The steady beeping of hospital monitors was the first thing I heard as consciousness slowly returned. My throat felt raw, my limbs heavy as lead. Through blurry vision, I could make out the sterile white ceiling and fluorescent lights of the ICU. "She's waking up," a nurse's voice called out. "Page Dr. Matthews immediately." My name is Anna Chen, and I had just spent 2 months in a coma following a car accident. But as I would soon discover, a lot can happen in 2 months, especially when you have a sister-in-law who's been waiting years for the perfect opportunity to destroy everything you've built. The next few days passed in a haze of doctors, tests, and painful physical therapy sessions. My body felt foreign, weakened from weeks of disuse, but my mind was sharp, already trying to piece together what I'd missed during those lost months. It wasn't until Grace, my assistant of 5 years, came to visit that I learned the full extent of what had happened. Her eyes were red-rimmed as she sat beside my hospital bed, clutching a manila envelope. "Anna, I'm so sorry," she began, her voice trembling. I tried to stop them, but there was nothing I could do. "Rebecca." She took everything. Rebecca, my sister-in-law's name sent a chill down my spine. I'd never trusted her, not since the day my brother James brought her home 5 years ago. She'd always looked at my successful marketing agency with barely concealed envy, making snide comments about how lucky I was to have built such a thriving business. "What do you mean, she took everything?" I asked, though deep down I already knew. Rebecca had finally made her move. Grace opened the envelope with shaking hands. "2 weeks after your accident, she and James called an emergency board meeting. With you in a coma and no clear timeline for recovery, they voted to dissolve Chen Marketing Group and redistribute the assets." My chest tightened. "They can't do that. I own 60% of the company." "They used some kind of emergency clause in the bylaws," Grace explained. "Something about incapacitated leadership." Rebecca had lawyers present. Everything seemed technically legal. I closed my eyes, remembering the day Rebecca had insisted on reviewing our company bylaws, claiming she wanted to better understand the family business since marrying James. I should have seen it then. She'd been planning this for years. "What happened to the clients? The employees?" Grace's expression darkened. "Rebecca started a new agency, Phoenix Marketing Solutions. She took almost everything. The office lease, equipment, even our client contracts. She approached everyone individually while you were unconscious, convinced them it was the only way to ensure continuity of service. And James, my own brother, allowed this? He claims it was the only logical solution. Rebecca has him completely convinced that dissolving Chen Marketing was the right thing to do. He keeps saying you would have understood, that it was just business." Just business. The words made my blood boil. I had spent 10 years building Chen Marketing from the ground up, working endless hours, pouring every ounce of creativity and determination I had into making it successful. And Rebecca had swooped in like a vulture the moment I was vulnerable, taking advantage of my brother's weakness to steal it all. Grace reached for my hand. "There's more. Rebecca's been spreading rumors, suggesting that the accident wasn't really an accident. That maybe the pressure of running the company was too much, that you were becoming unstable." My jaw clenched. Of course she would try to destroy my reputation too. It wasn't enough to steal my company. She wanted to make sure I could never rebuild. "How many employees went with her?" "Most of them," Grace admitted. "She offered everyone positions at Phoenix, saying it was the only way to ensure job security. Only a few of us refused." I squeezed her hand, grateful for her loyalty. "Thank you, Grace, for everything." She managed a small smile. "What are you going to do?" I thought about the backup plan I put in place years ago, after the first time I caught Rebecca trying to access confidential company files. The secure server only I knew about, containing copies of every contract, client communication, and piece of proprietary information Chen Marketing had ever produced. The offshore account where I'd been quietly transferring portions of our profits, building a safety net that even the board couldn't touch. "First," I said, my voice steady, "I'm going to focus on getting stronger. Then I'm going to show Rebecca exactly why you should never underestimate someone who's spent years preparing for every possibility." Grace's eyes widened slightly. She'd worked with me long enough to recognize that tone. The one that meant I wasn't just angry, I was calculating. The next morning, Rebecca herself decided to pay me a visit. She walked into my hospital room like she owned it. Designer heels clicking against the linoleum floor, perfect makeup unable to hide the smug satisfaction in her eyes. "Anna, you're looking, well, about as good as can be expected," she said, settling into the chair beside my bed. "I hope you understand why we had to do what we did. The company couldn't just sit in limbo while you recovered." I studied her face, the face of someone who thought they'd won, who believed they were untouchable. "Of course," I replied calmly. "Business is business, right?" She smiled, clearly pleased by my apparent acceptance. "Exactly. I'm glad you see it that way. I was worried you might take it personally." "Nothing personal about it," I said, letting my lips curve into a slight smile. "Though I have to admire your timing. Very opportunistic." Something flickered in her eyes, uncertainty, perhaps wondering if I was truly as defeated as I appeared. But her confidence quickly returned. "Well, I should go. Lots of meetings today. You know how it is." "Oh, wait." She paused at the door, that smug smile returning. "I suppose you don't anymore." "Take care, Anna. Maybe try something less stressful next time. Flower arranging, perhaps?" As she walked out, I thought about the USB drive hidden in my home office, the one containing evidence of every questionable decision Rebecca had made while working at Chen Marketing. The unauthorized client contacts, the attempted data breaches, the suspicious financial discrepancies I'd documented but never confronted her about. I also thought about Marcus Chen, my father, retired now but still one of the most respected names in the industry. The man who had taught me that success in business wasn't just about being smart, it was about being patient, about knowing when to hold your cards and when to play them. "The best revenge," he used to say, "is the one your enemy never sees coming." Rebecca thought she had won because she had acted while I was unconscious. She didn't realize that I had been preparing for this possibility since the day I first saw that calculating look in her eyes. She had taken my company, yes, but she had no idea what she had really started. I pressed the call button for the nurse. It was time to step up my physical therapy. I had a lot of work to do, and I needed to be strong enough to do it. That evening, as I lay in my hospital bed reviewing the therapy schedule, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was Marcus, my father's old friend and mentor, now semi-retired but still one of the most influential figures in marketing circles. "Heard what happened. Ready when you are." I smiled, remembering the conversation we had years ago, when I first shared my suspicions about Rebecca. Marcus had helped me set up the contingency plans, introduced me to the right people, showed me how to create a safety net so strong it would be virtually impossible to destroy. The key, he had told me, is to let them think they've won. Let them get comfortable, confident, maybe even a little careless. That's when they make mistakes. I typed back a simple reply, "Time to begin." Rebecca had no idea, but her victory was about to become her biggest mistake. She thought she had taken everything from me, but she didn't realize that sometimes losing it all is just the beginning. The next few weeks were a blur of physical therapy sessions and careful planning. While my body slowly regained its strength, my mind was working overtime, putting all the pieces into place. Grace became my eyes and ears, keeping me updated on everything happening at Phoenix Marketing. And there was plenty to report. Rebecca, drunk on success and convinced of her own brilliance, was already making crucial mistakes. She was overpromising to clients, alienating key employees, and burning through resources at an alarming rate. Classic moves of someone who knew how to take power but had no idea how to wield it. But the biggest surprise came from James. My brother, apparently growing a conscience, started visiting me regularly. At first, his visits were awkward, filled with stuttered explanations and weak justifications for his role in Rebecca's takeover. "She said it was the only way," he kept repeating, like a mantra. The lawyers agreed. The board voted. I didn't have a choice. I let him talk, watching as guilt ate away at him. James had always been the softer one, more easily swayed by emotions and manipulation. Rebecca had played him perfectly, but her spell was starting to crack. One afternoon, about 6 weeks after I woke up, James brought me a stack of documents, internal reports from Phoenix Marketing. His hands shook slightly as he placed them on my bedside table. "Something's wrong," he admitted, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "The numbers don't add up. Rebecca's been. I think she's been hiding things from me, from everyone." I picked up the papers, already knowing what I would find. Rebecca was good at taking things that didn't belong to her, But she had never learned the most important lesson of business. Sustainability requires more than just ambition. James, I said softly, what do you want me to do? He looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time since this all began. Help me fix this, he whispered. Please, Anna. Before it's too late. I nodded, keeping my expression neutral even as satisfaction coursed through me. Everything was falling into place exactly as I had anticipated. Rebecca had taken my company, but in doing so, she had walked right into a trap years in the making. The stage was set for phase 2 of my plan, and this time, I would make sure Rebecca understood exactly who she was dealing with. 2 months after waking from my coma, I finally walked out of the hospital on my own 2 feet. The autumn air was crisp, carrying the scent of fallen leaves and new beginnings. Grace waited by her car, ready to drive me home. But we weren't heading to my house. Take me to the office, I said, smoothing down my blazer. It's time to pay Rebecca a visit. Grace's eyes widened. Are you sure? You haven't been there since. Since Rebecca stole it? I finished, my voice calm. Exactly. I think it's time to see what she's done with my company. The drive to Phoenix Marketing's office, my old office, was quiet. As we pulled into the parking lot, I noticed the new signage, the rebranded logo that Rebecca had rushed to implement. It was gaudy, trying too hard to look expensive. Just like her. Wait in the car, I told Grace. This won't take long. The security guard at the front desk didn't recognize me, another new hire. I smiled politely. I have an appointment with Rebecca Chen. A small lie, but necessary. He checked his computer, frowning slightly. I don't see anything scheduled. Oh, it must have been overlooked. I'm Anna Chen, her sister-in-law. She's expecting me. His eyes lit with recognition. Oh, Ms. Chen, I'm so sorry. Please, go right up. The elevator ride to the top floor gave me time to prepare. I knew exactly what I would find. Grace's reports had been thorough. Rebecca had redecorated, of course, trying to erase every trace of Chen Marketing Group. But some things couldn't be erased so easily. I heard her voice before I saw her, floating through the open door of what used to be my office. No, absolutely not, she was saying, her tongue sharp. We promised them a full campaign by next week. I don't care if the team is overwhelmed. Make it happen. I stepped into the doorway, taking in the scene. Rebecca sat behind my old desk, looking perfectly polished in an expensive suit. But there were cracks in her facade, dark circles under her makeup, tension in her shoulders. Running a company wasn't as easy as she thought. She looked up, and for a moment, genuine shock flashed across her face. Then her mask slipped back into place. Anna, she said, quickly ending her call. What an unexpected surprise. I didn't think you were out of the hospital yet. Clearly, I replied, moving into the office. You've been busy. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Yes, well, someone had to keep things running. The business world doesn't stop just because. Just because you orchestrated a hostile takeover while I was in a coma. I finished, keeping my voice pleasant. Rebecca's jaw tightened. It was a legal transfer of assets approved by the board. If you're here to cause problems. Actually, I cut in. I'm here to give you a warning. She laughed, but it sounded forced. A warning? About what? I settled into one of the visitor chairs, crossing my legs calmly. Did you really think I wouldn't have contingency plans in place? That I would build something this valuable without protecting it? The first flicker of uncertainty crossed her face. What are you talking about? You see, Rebecca, you were so focused on taking my company that you never stopped to ask yourself why it was so easy. Why someone who spent 10 years building an empire would leave it vulnerable to a simple boardroom vote. I reached into my bag and pulled out a USB drive, setting it on her desk. This contains copies of every unauthorized access attempt you made to our secure servers over the past 3 years. Every time you tried to steal client information, every questionable financial transaction you initiated, every email you sent trying to undermine my relationships with key accounts. The color drained from her face. You're bluffing. Am I? I smiled. There's also detailed documentation of certain creative accounting practices you've implemented since taking over. The kind that might interest the SEC. She stood up abruptly, her carefully maintained composure cracking. Get out. You can't prove anything. I already have, I said, rising smoothly. The difference is, I'm giving you a chance to fix this before it all comes crashing down." "Fix what?" she demanded. "Phoenix Marketing is mine now. You can't touch it." I moved to the door, pausing to look back at her. "You have 48 hours to start the process of returning control of the company to me. After that, everything on that drive goes public. Oh, and Rebecca, check your client list tomorrow morning. You might find it shorter than you expected." As I walked out, I heard her frantically dialing her phone. I didn't need to hear the conversation to know she was calling her lawyers. They would tell her what I already knew: she was trapped. The next morning, chaos erupted at Phoenix Marketing. Major clients began withdrawing their accounts en masse, all citing concerns about recent management changes. Rebecca's carefully constructed house of cards was collapsing. What she didn't know was that I had spent my hospital stay reconnecting with key clients through Marcus's network. Many of them had known my father, had worked with me for years. They were more than happy to align with someone they trusted over Rebecca's uncertain leadership. James called me in a panic. "Anna, it's falling apart. Rebecca's locked herself in the office, won't talk to anyone." "What did you do?" "Nothing she didn't bring on herself," I replied. "Check your email. I sent you some documents you should see." By evening, Rebecca's lawyers had contacted mine. They were ready to negotiate terms. She had finally realized what she was up against, not just evidence of her illegal activities, but the complete unraveling of everything she had stolen. The meeting was set for the next morning. I arrived early, sitting at the head of the conference table where I belonged. When Rebecca walked in, she looked like she hadn't slept. James followed, unable to meet my eyes. "Before we begin," I said, addressing the room of lawyers and board members, "I want to make something clear. This isn't about revenge. This is about protecting what I built, what my father built before me." Rebecca snorted. "Right. You're so noble, aren't you, Anna? Always the perfect businesswoman." "No," I replied calmly, "I'm just better at this game than you are. I've had years of practice after all." The terms were simple. Rebecca would step down, transferring all assets and control back to me. In exchange, I wouldn't pursue legal action over her numerous violations of corporate law. She would retain a small settlement, enough to start over somewhere else, far from my company. "And if I refuse?" she asked, her voice tight. I slid a folder across the table. "Then every document in here becomes public record. Your choice." She signed the papers with trembling hands, her signature sharp and angry on the page. As she stood to leave, she paused. "You planned this," she said. "All of it. You let me think I had won." I met her gaze steadily. "The difference between us, Rebecca, is that I learned from my father that true success isn't about taking what you want. It's about building something that lasts." After she left, James lingered, his face a mask of shame and regret. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I should have seen what she was doing. Should have stopped her." "Yes," I agreed. "You should have. But you can make it right now." Over the next few weeks, I rebuilt what Rebecca had tried to destroy. Most of the employees returned, grateful to be back under stable leadership. Clients who had fled Phoenix Marketing signed new contracts with Chen Marketing Group, impressed by how I had handled the crisis. Grace sat across from my desk, my real desk, back in my office, reviewing the latest numbers. "We're actually stronger than before," she said, smiling. "The publicity from Rebecca's failed takeover attempt has brought in new business. Everyone loves a comeback story." I thought about the lessons my father had taught me, about patience and preparation, about building something that could withstand any storm. Rebecca had thought she was taking my company, but all she had really done was make it stronger. The security system beeped and I glanced at the monitor showing the front entrance. A familiar figure was walking out, carrying a box of personal items. Rebecca's last day. She looked up at the camera, and for a moment, our eyes met through the lens. I thought about how different things might have been if she had chosen to build something of her own instead of trying to steal what others had created. But some people never learn that success isn't about what you can take. It's about what you can create. I turned back to my computer, already focused on the future. Chen Marketing Group wasn't just surviving. It was thriving. And this time, I knew without a doubt that what I had built would last.